Welcome back to another episode of The Lauren Epstein Show. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein, here on 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. We are broadcasting today from Unleash, the Unleash HR Technology Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. And with me today, I have a very special guest, Jason Averbuch. And Jason is quite an extraordinary guy. I've known him for a few years, actually tangentially, and I think this is going to be our longest conversation. But Jason is a well-known thought leader and keynote speaker in the area of human resources. He focuses on the impact of technology and that impact in the workplace. Jason is the CEO and co-founder of LeapGen, which is a consulting firm that helps companies shape their future workplace. He's a specialist in working with executives to deliver services to employees that meet and in many cases exceeds the expectations of the workforce. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Thanks. So your role this week is the MC.
Yeah, so, Unleash, this is the second year Unleash is actually here in the Americas. I've been part of the Unleash conference itself for the last 6 or 7 between Amsterdam, Paris, London.
Is that right?
Yes, so this is the second in the US, and it's really, really exciting. And being the MC is always one of the things I love about being the MC is I like just learning. I'm truly a lifelong learner. I love the learning aspect. So being able to surround yourself with brilliant thinkers and introduce them on stage, listen to them, and then be able to recap that for the audience it's a really fun couple days. It's tiring, but fun.
Nice. I like what you said earlier about that you're just another conference attendee, basically getting the show going.
Yeah, that's how I think of it, is I'm just another conference attendee representing the rest of the people in the audience who aren't the ones doing the introducing. Yeah. For me, it's about learning, it's about listening, it's about, what I'll do, as I introduce attendees is really ask for the audience to do 3 things: interact, imagine, and hope that there's some inspiration. So 3 I's: interact, inspire, and imagine. And if they can walk away with those 3 things and doing those 3 things, I've done my job successfully as a MC, I guess. I don't even like to call myself an MC. I'm just the, like I said, person in the audience introducing people.
Cool. Now you have a book coming out in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's my second book. I said after the first one I would never do a second, and I think it's kind of like what my wife says about having a baby. Like, when you have the first one, you're never going to do it again, but then you go ahead and do it.
And how many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids. Yeah.
So you think you'll have a third book?
Yes, I already will have a third book for sure. But
and that doesn't come with a kid.
My wife's not involved. Well, I guess she is tangentially. But the book is called The Digital Workforce Experience. A leap for a purpose. And really, if we think about the concept of the digital workforce experience today, it's really nothing different than we've been talking about forever around experience at work. Only now everything's digital. We have to think digital about everything we do. The way we access whatever is done digitally. It's not done via paper. It's not done with posters, in the cafeteria. We live in a digital world, and it's time for HR to think digitally first in everything they do.
So I think, for the folks listening, I know that a lot of people have a resistance to technology. We embrace it in one hand, and we poo-poo it and reject it in the other. Like we love the idea that I can order from Amazon and get something in 2 days, versus when we were kids it was like 6 to 8 weeks.
Right.
And pay by check. Mm-hmm. And we also are worried about Skynet, and we're worried about who's going to have our information and what does that mean for our lives. What can people do to either let go of some of the resistance, or what's the imagination of what's possible for people's lives? How is this going to better people's work lives, having a more digital experience?
It's really interesting. So let's go back to your analogy, if we could. Like when we mail ordered something, and we sent a check, someone had our information, right?
Right.
Someone had it.
Right.
Maybe it was sitting in someone's file cabinet. But someone had our information.
Right.
People have had our information forever.
Right.
The concept that it's now, maybe hackable, it's always been hackable. It was hackable by someone breaking into an office.
Sure.
Before. Like the world really
but before all of it was in paper, you'd have to walk out with bundles and bundles of paper.
Yeah.
Now I could put everything on a chip.
Yeah, it may be easier to put it on a chip,
Sure.
but like digital ignorance is an excuse. It truly is. And I think that we can make excuses for everything in our life. Why am I smoking? Oh, because I have to.
Right.
We can make excuses for everything in our life. But the concept is we live in a world where everything around us has the ability or is digital. And because of that, in order for us to live what I'll call a frictionless life, we should take advantage of it. So what does frictionless mean? Frictionless means that I'm going to take advantage of technology to make my life easier.
Right.
Okay? I'm going to be able to run better because I'm actually have tools to help me run better.
So a friend of mine was telling me he was on a plane a few years ago in Chicago, going back to San Francisco, and he had gotten some service that would digitally read all of his emails. So all of his emails in his Gmail account would get read by some computer algorithm and relate to him about it. So he's on the plane, and he gets this note saying, sir, this flight's been canceled. And if you want, we found you a flight to get you back home. Would you like to buy it? And he was like, yes. Within a couple of minutes, the captain comes on the plane and says, the flight's been canceled. Everyone get off the plane. And he was like, in the game of life, I won. Mm-hmm. I got to go home, and they didn't. And so that's the upside.
Well, right? it's trying to take it. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I think a lot of people will be like, opening up my email to a computer to read feels weird, right? I mean, it just feels weird, whether it is or isn't, but it just feels weird.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah,
and it's change.
Right.
So I'll share an example. Like coming down here to do this interview with you. I don't know if you passed the Starbucks.
Yeah.
But there's 200 people in line at the Starbucks.
Really?
200 people. What did I do? From my tablet in my room, I said, coffee, Americano, Jason, done.
Right.
Like, I just walked past the 200, grabbed my coffee, and got down here. I'd be 30 minutes late.
Sure.
If I didn't do that.
Right.
So was I winning?
I think so. Totally. So,
I'm not sure if it's winning. But you're.
Well, you save time.
Well, yeah, you save time, and I'm able to do something for 30 minutes instead of waiting in line.
Yeah.
So it's really making your life better. It's making your life easier. And if we take that back to the world of business and HR, what we should want to be making our employees' lives easier, our employees' lives better. So from a digital standpoint, that's what it is. It's not. If we think about it as hacking and think about it as risk and all that other stuff, we're just going to keep doing the same thing HR has done forever, which is being afraid.
Right.
And not taking chances versus truly trying to make the industry itself better.
And this is true for every industry around technology, around digital.
It truly is, but what are we?
You can say it's about healthcare. You can say it's about.
Yeah, you can say about anything.
Yeah.
But what are we really like in HR? Are we really storing stuff? We're storing some information, but what we're storing is not that, top secret science patented type stuff.
Sure.
But
this is not even the storing of the data. It's kind of like the interjection into my personal space.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might even be real, but psychically, I think some people feel, and we don't. I get it's like it's happening.
Right.
And so I think what I'd love to hear from you is like, what's the good news, and how can we make how can individuals embrace this change, because that's what we always struggle with, right?
Yeah, and what's really funny, and I spoke to a Xerox executive probably a year ago about this, and when he told me this, I could not stop laughing. Do you know that for the last 20 years, every single copy machine that Xerox has ever made has been storing what your image of the copy is you've made?
No.
Yep.
Really?
Yep, on a chip.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Now, those things get discarded afterwards, but where?
Right.
So for those people that made copies of their driver's license, for those people that made copies of their credit card,
wow,
for those people that made copies of their tax returns,
right,
for those people that made copies of their butt, is a funny thing. Like, that's all stored.
Gigabits of butts.
That's all stored digitally.
Right.
So, this isn't that different.
Right.
It's people are like, what if my phone number gets out? I'm like, do you remember what a phone book was? Your phone number was out most of the time. So, it's fascinating to watch, and it's fascinating to look at. Sorry, I just wanted to share that story.
Yeah, no, that's great.
You constantly have to remind people that while the latest new thing, is new, this is it's just taking everything that's been done for a long time and reimagining it.
Right.
And it's just important to keep in mind.
I find for me that when change occurs, that I need to create a narrative that I can embrace. I mean, even small changes. I mean, being married, right? There's wonderful things about being married, and then when I'd come to a growth point, a contraction of like, okay, this is getting tough. What's on the other side?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I love my wife, and I enjoy, and feel so much affinity and enjoy being with her. How do I get past whatever's going on to continue to grow? And so, I get it. Technology's been around for a long time. My data's out there. I'm still alive, and life is okay. Life is good, right? What can folks expect from like the next wave of blockchain and other technologies in their lives?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not afraid to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the exciting things about what we're in a little bit of a trust fall. When it comes to the world of what this looks like.
Right.
When you were talking about, the marriage and, how do you get over change and things like that, what we constantly have to look at is we shouldn't look at the technology. So I could throw out blockchain, I can throw out AI, I can throw out whatever the latest buzzword du jour is.
Right.
But what you want to look at is what's in it for you.
Yeah.
What's in it for me. So what's in it for you being married? Is it worth the change on the other side?
Right.
What's in it for me to actually give my credit card information on my mobile device?
I think you're hitting on it, right? Is it the why?
Yeah.
And I don't think that we, and I say we, I mean the broad we,
right,
as a country, as a world, really kind of present the why before the how.
No, I hate to be blunt, but we suck at it.
Yeah, we do suck at it.
I mean, we're like, let's jump at the shiny object,
right,
without really understanding why we're jumping
right
at the object.
So that'd be a good conversation to have.
Oh, it's an amazing, I love it. I mean, I love the conversation because what you want to do, especially, and by the way, in HR, we're really bad at it.
And this is the hard conversations to have.
Yeah, no, it is, because in consumer world, like, we pick it up.
Yeah.
HR world, people are like, oh, they're not going to use it. What do we do? Blah, blah, blah. All that, excuse.
Right.
So what's in it for the employee? What's in it for the employee for you to have their data, for them to for you to know their talent profile information, for you to know their name and address accurately? Like, there's so much in it for them that allows you to deliver personalized content. It's amazing. But if you just market it as another HR tool, fill out the form, click here to go to the form. Like, you're going to get abandonment, and you're going to get people like, I don't see why I'm doing this. You hired me as a nurse, I'm filling out forms.
Right. We're not telling the story.
No, we're not telling a story. In fact, we're really bad at storytelling.
Yeah.
It was something I covered in my pre-conference workshop yesterday, is how to tell stories.
And a future story, how to create a narrative of here's where we're at, here's where we want to go to. Why is that going to be amazing for you, right, the listener?
And
I think that happens in even in movies, right? When you see a movie, you know that the end is going to be something probably really good.
Right.
So you stick through it. It's that keeps you going.
And it's going to be more important into the future.
Right.
So, what are doctors supposed to be good at?
Yeah.
Telling stories.
Well, I think this is great. Yeah. So let's talk about this, the why of technology, right? So let's talk about that. How do you personally feel about the why of your technical evolution?
Yeah, can we talk about the why of...
talk about anything.
No, can we talk about the why of digital?
Yeah.
I think it's really important to separate digital versus technology.
Okay.
Okay, so they're not the same.
That's a good lesson for me.
They're not the same at all.
Right.
So if we think about digital is a combination of mindset, people, process, and technology.
Say that again?
Digital is a combination of is a combination of mindset, people, process, and technology. That's what living in a digital world involves. It involves hitting on those four areas.
Nice.
Now, technology itself is just dumb. I mean, it's just the technology.
Right.
Okay? So if we go back to what you asked, which is like, what about living in a digital world? Living in a digital world means that I have the mindset where I'm open to learning. I'm open to trying new things. And I'm watching the fact that, my kid who does his math talking to his device, and my 9-year-old or 10-year-old, who says 13 plus 10 divided by 2, 11.5 is the answer it gets. It says it. He writes it down. I'm like, Alex, don't you think you should show your work? He's like, what do you mean show my work? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, don't you think you should actually show how you got to 11.5? He goes, how am I going to show it? I spoke into the device and it gave me the answer. And I'm like, that's a digital native.
Right.
You know, he grew up knowing that's what you do. Now, digital immigrants like us, like we know what show our work means.
Right.
But he's like, how am I supposed to show it? Like, I talked into it and it gave me the answer.
Right.
So it's fascinating when you think about that. But you know, that's the evolution of time. You know, is that
I want to. That's a great story. I love
Yeah.
that story, and I know a lot of my listeners, particularly younger folks, are going to be like, "Yes, of course," and some of my older listeners are going to be like, "Yeah, but he's not learning anything, right?" And what would be like? I want to speak to it. I think that the idea is that is it really important to be able to show your work? Is that the maximum potential of a human being, or is there something greater and better that he can be doing with his brain
Yeah.
than like solving math problems? I mean, I understand, like, you know, I did it and you did it.
Yeah.
I honestly felt like it was nonsense. Like I did not get value out of solving math problems.
Yeah, and you know the amazing thing is, and it's
But I get I get value out of being in relationship with people.
right.
Like I'm learning here now with you. I'm getting an experience of you, and I'm going to take away this experience in the days and the years following, and be like, oh yeah, what Jason said, and how does that kind of impact my creativity? And you know, maybe just let go of all those old ideas about how we interact with our stuff, and start embracing new ideas so that we can really get out of our brains. And I think that we'll keep going, but I mean that's what it feels like.
No, you know, and his thing is, why would I spend 30 minutes doing this when I can spend 30 minutes with my friends?
Yeah, sure.
I was like, I mean, it's hard not to have an
there you go.
answer.
That's it.
You know, and so there's in the back of my mind is like, humanity going to be more stupid because of this? But you know, I'm going to go back to the answer. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, there's just things that we do, you know, as technology evolves, as digital mindsets evolve. I mean, there's things we don't know.
Right.
I mean, there's the Fortnite craze going on today.
What's the Fortnite craze?
So you know this game Fortnite, where basically every kid is playing this game called Fortnite, and it's an app. It's something available on your, in our world, our Atari, our Commodore, now PS4, and Xbox.
Right.
You know, it's available online. It's basically a game. My kids want me to sit with them while they play it, and I'm like, you guys, this looks like the stupidest thing in the world, but they're addicted to it. So somehow. So, you know, if I try to take my device away from my 13-year-old or take his device away, he's like, just let me finish this game. And I was like, really? Like, seriously? He's like, I have to get through this level. And I was like, okay. Like, he truly feels serious about it. And I coach a Little League baseball team where they're doing the Fortnite dance. You know,
It's a dance.
It's a dance. It's part of it. There's a dance in the game. So
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
Okay, yeah.
And we'll come back and talk more about the dance. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. You're listening to The Lauren Epstein Show here on 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. We'll be back in just a minute. Hi, I'm Lauren Epstein, and you're listening to The Lauren Epstein Show, where we talk about jobs, careers, and the workplace here on 96.7 FM. If you're interested in being on the show, you can give me a call at 240-876-0276 or email me at Lorne, Lorne, at electriccow.com. You can check out our Facebook page, which is Lauren Epstein, and also our Mixcloud account. So if you go to mixcloud.com, Lauren Epstein, you'll find our shows. Thanks so much. Welcome back to the Lauren Epstein Show. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. I'm here with Jason Averbrook, and we are talking about the Fortnite dance.
Hold on, I got to get back. Okay, you wanted me to get I'm done with Fortnite. Thanks for the break. I was able to play some Fortnite. No, just kidding. But it's
can you give me any sense of the game?
well, no, I mean it's really it's really a game. It's tied to collaboration. I don't really know. I really can't. Like don't ask me what the game does.
Oh my goodness, I should Google it right
because
now.
I can't tell you what the game actually does. But there's collaboration. There's teamwork. I mean, there's lots of things that go. It's not hardly an educational game by any means, but there's lots of interesting things in the game that make you think about the world of digital we live in today. And the kids want to play it together. And it's funny because my kid will play it with his next door neighbor. And I was like, why don't you guys just get together in the same room and play? They're like, why? And so it's just fascinating when you think through some of the meaning behind some of these actions. and where it's taking us. And I hate to say this, and I hate to say I don't know, but like people say, what is this good or bad?
Right. That's
And
what she's gonna. Right.
I don't know. Someone
Right.
asked me yesterday. They're like, "Do you think by looking at your phone so much it's bad for your eyes?" I'm like, if it is, then we're all in trouble, right? At some point, like that some of the study hasn't been done yet. So, what do these digital innovations do to the future of work? Do to the future of life? We're all like mice.
Right.
In this trial, which some people love, which I love.
Yeah.
Some people are scared to death.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, I think that there is the unknown. I think adults, and I say adults, whatever that means, are always concerned about the unknown, right? I mean, in the 60s, they were concerned about the unknown of that generation, and that continues, right? It's just, we don't know what this is going to lead to. A friend of mine's child is in school for making movies and film. And she doesn't get it. Like, how's he going to make a living? How's he going to be successful? And I think that part of what you're saying is that we have to embrace the question mark, and there's not going to be an answer. Well, and this is where we're going. We're all on the train.
Yeah. So the remember my equation. The mindset component of digital is what we're talking about here.
Right.
So the mindset component of digital is basically, hey, we don't know where we're going. And I'm going to be uncomfortable, or comfortable in this case, with some change. And as digital continues to advance, our job is to look at it and say, does it make sense in my life?
Right.
Does it make sense in my life right now?
Right.
When we work with enterprises, I say, just like people, how every person has their own unique DNA,
right.
Every organization has their own unique DNA. Mm-hmm. So does digital make sense in this aspect, in this company? Maybe, maybe not.
Right.
It's hard for HR people. It's hard for people in general because what they want to do is they want to benchmark against each other.
Right.
And
right.
the world we live in today, that's really hard because some people have the mindset that, like, let's charge ahead, and others are not that way.
Right.
So it's how do you take digital and combine it with empathy of a person to truly decide what makes sense in your life and in your work that I find simply fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what are some examples? I mean, you are working in digital and you are working in the HR space. What are some things that folks could see in their workplace?
Yeah, and I, every time you say something, I don't mean to correct you when I say it.
Please.
But I like to think of myself as working in the workspace.
Okay.
Not in the HR space.
Okay.
Like HR is a department.
Totally.
We're talking about how people work. Okay? Yeah. So we're doing a lot more than just talking about the few people in HR or the hundreds of people in HR.
Yeah.
We're really impacting how work happens in the world today.
The reason I do this show is so I can learn.
Yeah.
Because there's so much I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't have the patience like you, which makes it so much easier for me to learn about things.
Yeah.
When I have people just explain it to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the biggest changes that I see happening, over the next couple years is that, and I say couple as truly couple, not 20, but couple.
Yeah.
Is in work, the role of how we get answers to questions is changing by the second. So if we think about the world we live in our consumer lives, our personal lives, how do I get an answer to a question? We talked about how my son gets a, answer to his math question, but how do I get an answer to what's the weather? There are going to be some people that will talk into their device. There's some people that will just type it in.
Right.
And some people will look in the paper.
Right.
Or turn on the television. I don't know, who those people are.
A quick story about that. Yeah. One of my neighbors is a weather person.
Yeah.
And she has been in all these markets around the country. And now she's in DC, which is like, one of the bigger markets.
Right.
When she would live in all these smaller towns where she got paid a lot less money, everybody knew her because everyone watched television. Mm-hmm. Here, nobody watches television and people don't know her.
Right.
Because who's going to watch the weather person doing the weather when they can just look on their phone
or
on their computer?
Yeah, so how we get answers to questions is changing, and it's changing by the second. And if we think about work, or people spend 50 to 60% of their time chasing down, how does this work here?
Yeah.
How do we get answers to questions? Something as simple as how do I apply for a new job?
Yeah.
To, I am having a baby or a death in the family, to what training class should I take to get better at thinking about digital? And all that stuff is going to be answered digitally going
Right.
forward. So where does that leave our people? Where does that leave our people that have been there for 50 years answering
Right.
questions? It leaves them in I call it an emergency situation right now, where they have to upskill themselves.
Right.
They have to upskill themselves to being question answerers. They have to upskill themselves from being question answerers to being problem solvers.
Right.
Okay, because where humans actually
Right.
come in this next gen is solving problems,
Yeah.
not answering questions.
You know what you're saying? I mean, it's just kind of putting a lot of pieces together for me, because I see, like everyone else, people who are listening to the show see that there's been this shift in jobs and people feel less relevant. And I think that sense of less relevancy is that those folks are not transforming themselves into being problem solvers.
Yeah, and I think,
Because they just haven't, or they don't see it, or whatever. But
right, their identity has
Yeah.
been, hey, if I can answer these questions in X amount of time,
Right.
get through all these questions, I've done a good job.
Right.
If we think about the world they've lived in, I call it RAD. And the acronym of RAD is repeatable, auditable, and documented.
Which means,
Which basically means that the work that they've been doing has been repeatable, auditable, and documented. It's been the same work.
Right.
It's been the same work, same questions. Hey,
Right.
I got 372 calls about how to get a new password. I got 272 calls on what's the 401k plan.
right. Instead of that, it becomes a digital
Right, that stuff
solution.
is handled via digital. And by the way, there are organizations that we work with that will say, we want more of a white glove, high touch approach. And I find it fascinating. I think the world we live in today, there's two types of touch. There's high touch digital and there's high touch human. And I want to think about, where do I use high touch human?
Right.
I want to use high touch human in situations where I still need to show empathy. I still need to have a person listening. But high touch digital, most people love online chat from a customer service standpoint more than they do waiting in line to talk to someone in India or the Philippines. And nothing up against India or the Philippines, but they don't know the business as much as the company itself does if I've outsourced that or offshored it.
Right.
So when I really think about it, the question becomes, which capabilities do I offer in a high-touch human manner
Yeah.
versus which capabilities do I offer in high-touch digital? And the best way to learn about that is looking at what's happened in the consumer world. So think about Amazon. If I have if I want to return something, do I call?
Right.
No, I've digitized that process completely, and that's how.
We just returned some things to Amazon, and they opened up these boxes, right, the lockers, in the 7-Eleven, like 1,000 yards from my house.
Yeah.
And so instead of like putting the stuff outside for the postman to pick up, I just run over, pop it in the box, and I'm done.
Yeah. It's really funny.
That was extraordinary.
Yeah, no, I was with my wife, and we were going somewhere on Sunday, and we passed a department store. I won't say the name of the department store, and there was a big banner that said Amazon returns accepted here. And my wife goes, seriously? That looks weird.
Right.
I said, it's brilliant.
Right.
Because this department store has basically just accepted that everyone's buying from Amazon.
Right.
And instead of fighting it, let's figure out how to get people into our stores
Right.
to buy something, and they give people an opportunity to return. I think it's a brilliant business strategy.
Right.
And it's dealing with, hey, I'm accepting the fact that this is now how people live and how people work, and saying, hey, let's embrace it.
Yeah.
And think about how we can still survive versus let's fight.
Right. I live in Arlington, Virginia, and we're in the heat of this Amazon coming to the HQ2, and there's resistance in folks in Arlington. Obviously more traffic, people don't, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, hey, this is going to increase property values and all these other things. So we're sorting through this kind of like change process. And I think, out of this conversation, I can see some room to have a bigger and broader conversation about how is this really going to impact us.
Oh, totally. And don't you think Jeff Bezos is just sitting back in his chair laughing that people are even talking about HQ2?
Why? Why would you say
Well,
that?
just isn't it funny? Like there's debates nationwide, actually worldwide, about where's the next Amazon headquarters. Like, we don't debate that with other companies.
That's true.
Like, I mean, there are companies that move headquarters every single day.
That's right.
And we're not having massive
why
global
is that?
debate. It's media. It's the media hype that's been created around it. But it's also, Amazon touches every one of us.
Yeah, I mean, they have over 500,000 employees.
Yeah. So I mean,
a lot of
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I spend 3 days a week at Whole Foods. It's Amazon.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I found amazing about Amazon, not to get too much on Amazon, but just to think about the impact that it has on our life, is so Amazon closed their Whole Foods deal, and within 2 days, there were Alexas in Whole Foods for sale. Now, like, think about the speed that they moved. Like, that's the speed that the world moves today.
Right.
And why we don't move that fast in other aspects of business.
Yeah.
Like, oh, sorry, I'm not going to be able to do anything for 3 years because I'm putting in a new HR system.
Right.
Like, that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Digital and agile are two words that are synonymous with each other, and we have to think faster.
I think, and for me, the selling point is that if I have more time, more resources, I would spend it on connecting with people and being with my family and being with friends, like your son, who'd rather spend 30 minutes with his friend. And to me, that's a really big why. Like, I can let go of a lot of these other things that might seem Skynet-ish or scary, to know that, hey, I'll have time to be with my family or pursue things that matter to me, which is, I think it's an empowering conversation.
And I guarantee you, because of digital, you're smarter today.
That's true.
Now, it doesn't mean you use the information
before,
better.
But now I'm like more of a know-it-all with
It doesn't
Wikipedia.
mean you use the information better.
No, that's true.
But it definitely means you're smarter.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about the old world of newspapers and how long it took for news to get to places, you might not know something's going on in HQ2, for a week.
Right.
So now, do we use the data in smart ways?
Right.
Do we tell stories about it the right way? That's a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
But we are more equipped as humans to live our lives in a more fulfilling and purposeful way today than we ever have been in the past.
Yeah. That's a powerful statement.
Yeah. And some people choose to do it, and other people choose to poo-poo it.
Right. But even the people who poo-poo it are still living in this space.
They're existing.
Yeah. They're existing in this space.
In this space. I can't really say they're living.
Right.
I mean, there are people that don't take the time to realize the information and the power and the data that's around them.
Right.
So, I mean, my 75-year-old mom, love her to death, but technology is more of a hindrance than it's a help. It's patience, it's, teaching an old dog, not calling her old, but teaching an old dog new tricks. It's all of those things. And, it's back to mind. Lauren, I hate to say this, but it's back to mindset.
Right.
I mean, there's a great new book out called it's not that new anymore, but a great book out called Mindset.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is there's two different types of mindsets. We break it down the simple. There's a growth mindset and there's a fixed mindset. Mm-hmm. If I have a growth mindset, I need to be continuously learning. I need to be continuously improving. I need to be continuously thinking about what's next.
So let's talk about that in a second. We're going to take a quick break, but I want to talk about mindset and also like our brain and how our brain consciously and unconsciously relates to some of these things, which might help kind of uncover what's going on.
Yeah,
folks.
That's great.
My name is Lauren Epstein. You're listening to The Lauren Epstein Show here on 96.7 FM in Arlington, Virginia, broadcasting from Unleash in Las Vegas, Nevada. We'll be back in just a second. Hi, I'm Lauren Epstein. Every week I talk about jobs and careers on 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia at 10 a.m. Mondays. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. This is The Lauren Epstein Show. I'm here with Jason Averbook, and we are talking about mindset and technology. So you're familiar with how the amygdala works and the prefrontal cortex. And this is something that was not in our consciousness 20 years ago. So we've done a couple of shows on unconscious bias. I had Howard Ross on the show, who's just brilliant about this stuff. And what I learned is that built into our brains, we have what would be the reptilian part of our brain, what keeps us safe. right? When you and I and Andy over here, my producer, were walking through the woods and we saw some other people, we wouldn't just go, "Hey, how you doing?" because there was danger, right? So we would make these really quick decisions, which activates our amygdala. And a lot of the things that activate our amygdala are fear and stress and pressure and tension and things that our brain would perceive as dangers. Let's speak to that and this embracing of because you said that there are people who have a learning mindset. I think that's fair to say that you are. You're here. I mean, you're a contemporary of mine, and you're really on the edge of whatever's coming next.
Yeah,
and embracing it.
And it's really interesting because when you said the mindset thing, and you mentioned the walking through the woods, I'd go talk to the people.
Right.
I don't know why.
Well, you might now.
I'd go, yeah. No, but I think I always have.
Yeah, well, but it might get you killed.
Yeah, but maybe.
Right.
It might get me
evolved,
killed.
Right. I mean, that's how it was. You didn't. There's a certain amount of fear-based thinking that saved our butts.
Right.
Right. We needed it. We still need it. But now we're talking about how do people get themselves out of that, not really having their amygdalas triggered. We talk about in hiring, if you're going to go to an interview, as an employer.
It's embracing it's really embracing empowering change in the future. I hate to say it, but
right.
You can't be afraid. Which means that you have to have a mindset to change that. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being afraid.
Uh-huh.
But I'm just saying, if you're going to be afraid, you're not going to be able to. You're going to have a closed mindset, a fixed mindset to see the other things that are possible out there.
Right.
So, I forget the amygdala and all the other body parts we're talking about for a second. All the why of all the body parts frames how you think in my mind.
Yeah.
And, as someone who works with leaders around the world every single day, by the way, it's a 10-second ID where, I can look at someone in 10 seconds, I can say, growth mindset, fixed mindset.
Right.
And change the conversation completely. Because if it's a growth mindset, I know exactly what they're going to be pushing towards. I know exactly what's going to light them up. If it's a fixed mindset, I know exactly what they're going to be focused on. But this is a really important concept for all of us to realize with not just who we work with, but who we live with. Right. Because people with that are afraid, there's a different in the old school, we called this change management. My master's is in marketing. I actually think of it as marketing. I need to convince you more the what's in it for you to do this. So I had to I taught my mom how to use FaceTime, who hates FaceTime, so she can see her grandkids.
Sure.
She lives in Minneapolis, we live in Los Angeles. I'm like, Mom, why don't you call us on FaceTime? She's like, I hate that thing. I'm like, well, it'd be nice to see your kid's new haircut, or grandkid's new haircut. Why don't you? Like, yeah. So if you tell the story and you actually show what's in it for them, you can get over that.
Okay.
The problem,
so let's. I want to hear your stories. Go ahead.
No, just real quickly. But the problem is, FaceTime itself is dumb technology.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden I just say, oh, here's the new thing. If you've seen Apple commercials on FaceTime, they make you cry.
Yeah.
Because you're reuniting with people all over the world that you couldn't possibly see before. So they bring out the emotion in you to make you try these new things. But that's digital. You have to have a digital mindset, which means I need to understand why I'm doing it, which is the people component. The process needs to be easy to do the FaceTime call. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it, because if it's not easy, I'm going to abandon, right? And then what's the technology? The FaceTime.
Right.
Okay, so take that into context and see how do we apply that to everything else that we do in life and say, are we ready for digital?
Right.
But just back to the fear thing, there are many HR leaders or business leaders, let's just say that, who say, we have 20% of our workforce that won't do that. And I will stare at them the way I'm staring at you right now. And I was like, yeah, so? So we're not going to do it. So stupid. You have 80% that are.
Right.
Why would you do it? By the way, the number's not 20. It's usually 2. So why would you not move 98% of the world forward and deal with the 2% as exceptions versus say, we're just not going to do it because there's a chance we might get killed? I realize we're mixing analogies here,
Yeah.
but it's really important to have this mindset that is one of moving forward
I get what you're
versus
saying.
standing still.
So give us some examples of what people could see in the workplace.
Oh, it's everything from, like I said, how do I search? So just something stupid.
I'm at work and
Yeah, I mean, so I'm
have a question.
I'm at work and I want to know what my paid time off balance is. How much time off do I have? What do you do?
well, I go into Deltek, I log in, I see my account and I click the button of leave. And it says right there how much leave I have.
Right. So why don't you ask your device, how much time off do I have?
Yeah, I don't have a device I can talk to.
Yeah. Why don't you type it into Skype? Why don't you type it into SMS text?
Right.
And why do you log into Deltek?
Yeah. Why can't it just track my time?
It tracks it,
Right.
but why can't you get it in a natural way
Yeah.
instead of an unnatural way, which is, I gotta log in.
Right.
Like, that's not how the world works. I mean, so that's one way. Another way is smart knowledge. If you searched for your paid time off policy, like, I want to know what my policy is. And you're a government contractor, and I've got different government contracts with different policies
Right.
for different sets of people. Why do I see them all?
Right.
I only want to see the ones that relate to me. I don't care about the group that I don't work in, what their paid time off policy is.
Yeah. It
So-
can be very complex. I mean,
Yeah.
in the government contracting space, for some minutes, it can be very complex.
It is, but you should.
shouldn't
I mean, from an HR standpoint, you might want to see it all. But for you, you only want to see what relates to you at the minute.
Right.
So bringing smart data, smart knowledge in a way that's relevant and time based to you, that's another huge like literally these are the next 1 to 2 years
Right.
that will change the way you work. I truly predict if you and I, and we should plan to do it, Unleash 2020.
Yeah.
You're not logging into Deltek to see your time off.
We'll do that show and we'll bring this show back.
No, you'll do SMS text.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it
I'd be like, Jason, it's done. It's
guaranteed.
done.
I guarantee that's what
Oh,
you'll
that'd
do.
be awesome. That would be awesome.
Because it's where you're used to working.
Yeah.
You don't need training.
Right.
You don't need a process map.
Right. I mean, I would love, like, so what I'm doing where I'm at is, trying to modernize our applicant tracking system and all that stuff. And to save time, because all the things that people have to do are kind of complicated. And, getting the data out is, you got to run BI reports. It's not just there. Why does it have to be someone running a report and customizing it in Excel and da-da-da-da? It just needs to be right there, the questions that I want to have answers to. And that's the benefits. What are the things people could see in their broader work experience?
Yeah, so one of the things I thought was really interesting about what you just said, you're modernizing your applicant tracking system, the way you said it.
Yeah.
What you're really doing is you're digitizing how you recruit.
Yes. Yeah, based on what you said earlier, yes.
Right.
We're digitizing how we recruit.
So that's that
Yeah.
mindset shift that
I'm glad you put that in there because I'm going to keep that. I really want to examine what that, when you said digital, I want to kind of explore that more on my own. But just
Well, and what's really interesting, and I don't want to get too deep into that, but where executives get stuck
Yeah.
is when you say you're optimizing your applicant tracking system. Where people go is to the IT department. When you say system or piece of technology, it oftentimes gets taken out of the hand of the business in people's heads,
right.
and IT comes in. And this is nothing against IT, but who knows what your digital recruiting strategy is? You.
Right.
They don't. That's not their expertise, and they shouldn't be. So what you're doing is you're saying, what's our digital recruiting strategy going to be? And you're saying there's a tool, which happens to be called an applicant tracking system, that we can use to empower that digital strategy. So I'm trying to raise the conversation into this, hey, back to your point, which I thought was brilliant, is the why. Why are you optimizing your applicant tracking system? It's to get something else. It's to get a better recruiting experience, or to have a better recruiting strategy, or to hire people faster, or something like that. So if we think about where that's going to fall, it's going to fall in every aspect of work. So learning. If we think about learning and development, the way that in the past I had, as an employee, had an opportunity to get trained on things was either A, old day, I'd look at a board and see what training classes are available. Then the advent of the LMS, the learning management system, came out. Yeah, we're like, okay, now I don't have to look at the board anymore. I can just go to the LMS and search for a course. And if I spell Excel wrong, it's not going to find it.
With 2 L's or 1 L.
Right, yeah. Now, in the world I live in today, based on knowing your job, I'm pushing content to you that helps you become better, that develops you in a proactive way versus you. So think about, pull versus push.
Right.
Instead of asking people to go pull their own stuff, I'm pushing stuff to you that makes you better. So that's where it has a huge impact in the
what you're saying there, that's awesome. I love that. Like, I have, downtime where I might read the paper on my phone,
Yeah.
or do things like that. But if I had a system that basically said it optimized my downtime for learning that really was applicable to me,
right,
it would be so much more valuable.
Yeah, and what's amazing about what you just said, the word is applicable.
Yeah.
It's or relevant.
Right. Yeah, I do want relevancy.
Yeah, because I
find that's one of the difficult things about the stuff I consume. It's not always relevant.
Yeah, and that was the biggest problem with the paper.
Right.
Like the newspaper.
Yeah, right.
Like, when I always laugh when people looked at the paper and they're trying to find the weather. And they're like looking at the little thing to see what's the temperature. I'm like, they're only caring about one city.
It is funny that the temperature would be in the paper.
Yeah, but yes, but the paper wasn't relevant.
Right.
Like, it was just a bunch of stuff.
Right. Or the stock prices.
Same thing with stock, yeah.
In the paper.
Right, yeah. And you have magnifying glass trying to see what the stock price was.
My mom would bring home the paper every night, and I'd look through it, and I'd see the stock prices, and I'd be like, okay. And now it's like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so as a little boy growing up, I used to always steal my mom's and dad's paper so that I could look at the baseball scores.
Right.
And I'd get up early, I might be the first to get the paper on the step. And, living in Minnesota, when the Twins were playing in California, what the score was that I saw, all it said was late.
Yeah.
And I was like, late? Like, yeah, there was a late game, so the paper already went to print, before they could publish the score.
Right.
And think about the world we live in today. No such thing.
Yeah, I think what's opening up for me in this conversation now is the notion of getting the information I want that I need for right now, and not being concerned about. It's kind of a gluttony of I can have all this information, or I can be a glutton about what really matters to me, and not being so concerned about, well, is this going to, not expose me to other things. If I can get these things done more, my mind will have more time. I'll have more time to expand my thinking. Right.
So there's a really interesting concept that we talk about a lot, which is how do you create a frictionless experience?
Yeah.
And the concept of an experience has to be defined. But in this case, our experience we're talking about right here is learning.
Yeah.
So how do I do it? It's delivering the right product to the right people at the right moment through the right channel.
Yeah.
Those 4 things: right product, right people, right moment, right channel.
Right.
And if I can do that, so let's take the sports. Right product, I want my score.
Yeah.
Right people, that's all I want. I don't want a whole paper, I just want the score. Right moment, I want it when I want it. I don't want it sitting out there. I want to pull it when I want it. Right channel, mobile, desktop, watch, whatever it is. Whatever that channel is that makes sense to me. So if we think about how we want to create experiences, because that's what people judge.
Yeah.
People judge experiences, they don't judge data.
Right.
If we think about our experience.
What's it feel like to do this?
Yeah, what does it feel like? And more importantly, how does it make me feel?
Yeah.
So at the time that I get that score, if I go onto my device right now and I look at a score, I get the score and I'm done, I feel good. Maybe I might feel bad because my team lost, but I feel good that I had such a great experience.
Right.
Okay? But if I went out, I always tell people, you could go in and do an Uber, order an Uber. Good experience on the interface.
Right.
But what if the Uber never shows up? Bad experience. Amazon, order on Amazon. But what if the product never shows up? Bad experience. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create an experience framework that says, hey, how do you want to feel at these moments that matter in the process?
Right.
Okay, and I think that's really important for all of the listeners to keep in mind. That's how, that's what drives success with digital.
Right.
So my new book, which is coming out,
Yeah.
which ties to this digital workforce experience, it's called Leap for a Purpose. Okay, and Leap goes back to the name of a company, LeapGen, which I'll talk about in a second. But purpose is, why are we doing this? Back to your point earlier. Like, we're not just doing it to do it. We're not doing it to keep up with the Joneses. We're doing it to drive engagement. We're doing it to drive culture. We're doing it to bring together 3 companies that have been acquired, and we're trying to come up with the same look and feel. Not technically, but how those companies interact. Like, we do these things for a purpose. Okay? Now, Leap, the concept of Leap, in the way that we define Leap, it stands for love, energy, audacity, and proof. Okay?
And proof?
Proof. So love what you do, which I love what I do. You clearly love what you do. If you love what you do, what does it do? It gives you energy. If you have energy, what can you do? You can do the audacious, like start a radio show, right? With your own t-shirts and stickers and all that stuff. And then what do? You prove the value to people, and you keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. That's leaping. So Leap for a Purpose is really saying, hey, you guys have to really put your heart into this and love what you're doing in order to truly get to the point where it's making an impact.
When's the book dropping?
June 12th.
And how can folks get it?
It'll be on Amazon, but and we'll be doing a book tour. But unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but the book's actually launching in Asia, so I'll be spending most of my summer in different parts of Asia.
Are you going to be in the DC area?
Like September, October timeframe.
Yeah. Well, if you want to come in,
yeah, it would be great.
We can have you back on talking
Yeah,
about it.
that'd be good.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, this has been a great conversation.
We're done?
Well, we've got like a minute and a half left.
Wow!
I know. That's what people
I feel like I've
always
been
say.
talking for 5 minutes.
That's exactly what everyone says. When they come on the show, they're like, 52 minutes? What am I going to say? And it's like, it's over? Yeah.
That was a ton of fun.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you shared. So any parting thoughts? And let us know how folks can reach out to you.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, the parting thought is that that digital versus technology is key for me, and if people would just think, like, how is digital impacting my life? Not technology, but digital.
Yeah.
And realizing that.
And say digital again.
Yeah, digital
Means.
It's a mindset. It's tied to the people that it's impacting. It's a process, and then it's the technology. But don't start with the technology.
Right.
Like, the reason that you download Audible is not because you want another app, right?
Because you want to get music right now.
Yeah, or you want to you want to hear a book, and things like that. So, start with digital, and then say, okay, how does technology going to fuel what I want? If you start with technology, you're almost always going to be disappointed because it's not going to meet your expectations.
We definitely start with the why.
Yeah. So, I'm all over social. Jason Averbook, is my Twitter hashtag. Friend me on Facebook, LinkedIn, leapgen.com.
Yeah.
Any of those.
Jason, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
some time
great.
with us.
Great to see you in Vegas.
Yeah. Here we are.
Do you know what one of the oldest professions in the world is?
Tell me.
HR. I just think it's funny. We're in Vegas and we're talking about one of the oldest professions in the world.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, this is the Lauren Epstein Show. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. Thank you for listening to our episode here with Jason Averbook. And get his book called
Digital Workforce Experience, Leap for a Purpose.
On Amazon. You're listening to the Lauren Epstein Show. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein, here on 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. We'll see you next week.